And welcome back once again to the PCS Summer. This, of course, is week 3. We've had some fantastic games here on 11.14 as we've been able to dive right into that meta. I am Pyrotechnics, he is Clement, and our sponsors, of course, are CTBC Bank, China Airlines, and Chunghwa Telecom. Clement, we got one more game to bring it home for the day. It is going to be Alpha Esports taking on Hong Kong Attitude. Now, it's kind of interesting because we're coming in with Alpha coming in on a win, and Hong Kong Attitude trying to shake off a loss against J-Team earlier today.
Honestly, just a very forgettable loss against J-Team. Things just went wrong very early on for them. So I think Hong Kong Attitude are still going to be in very high spirits. And against Alpha Esports, this is a super interesting matchup for me because both of these teams do tend to play very much aggressively for the early game. They are a 15 or bust team on either side, honestly. And on Alpha Esports side, it has been K-Babe and Xiaotu both coming in from connecting in from mainland China that are starting the 2v2 fights that they invest super heavily on.
Yeah, that has been kind of the game plan here. We've talked at length about how some of the communication issues could come through and how their coordination maybe isn't what they'd like it to be were they connecting in from all the same place. However, we have seen that the game plan has been to really just go on that jungle mid synergy as much as. And it's funny because on the opposite side of the map, we have a pretty big carry in the likes of Kongye out of the jungle, but Hongsuo also kind of in his rookie year has been debuting and showcasing some pretty impressive individual performance. Even if it's not enough to lead his team fully to the victory, I think he has definitely shown that he certainly belongs in the league. So looking at the roster across the board, standout performances, I think we can expect a few more to come through.
And both of these mid laners actually have first pick priority as the LeBlanc. So we have Xiaotu trying to hard carry his team, trying to play a skirmish game with K-Bae for most of the game. And his favorite champion is the LeBlanc and then into the Rise, both champions that have a lot of mobility when it comes to it. Rise with the map movement instead of the actual gap closers. And Hongsuo, on the other hand, is very much in the same vein, trying to play a two-man game with Kong Yue. So I think a lot of it is going to come down to mid-jungle. Indeed, we're going to get a look at the champions right here. Hongsuo, great Akali performances so far, good on the Rise, and we saw today the LeBlanc. So both of these guys have very similar champion pools, and I really feel like it's going to be a blinking game to see who is going to allow that blue side first pick to go through. If anyone gets a LeBlanc open, they're definitely just going to lock it in.
Yeah, I think that is a safe thing to say. Of course, the Rise has been shown to be a pretty effective pick. Maybe not to necessarily fully counteract it, but at least to be able to tangle with it. And both these players have shown quite a propensity for that champion as well. So wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being our matchup. Now, of course, the biggest difference, I think, is the solo deaths. Xiaotu definitely has been dying a little bit more often than Hongsuo.
Well, it really is to be expected if you're on the silence in a death brush most of the game, for most of the game, and very far away from the rest of your team. Then if you die, there's probably no one around to hear you scream. So I'm not surprised at that stat whatsoever, honestly. And I think the interesting thing to kind of consider about this game is how will the bot lane sort of shape up as well? We had a really breakout game from On last time around. On the Aphelios, he was left to his own devices throughout 30 minutes, but in the final team fight, he turned around and got a triple kill on Liab to close the game out. So I wonder if Hong Kong Attitude are going to consider that as a threat, or are they going to just continue to focus all of their bans onto K-Babe and Xiaotu and just take away the main weapon from Alpha?
Yeah, it's always an interesting thing when we talk about in the meta that we find ourselves in, like AD carries still find ways to shape the game, especially ones that have a track record of especially a lot of experience, the likes of On can bring to all of that and really have those pop-offs on a hyper carry at the end of the game when that starts to matter. I feel like the teams like Hong Kong Attitude could ignore that at their own peril. We will see as the bans come through, arguably 3 jungle bans there on the Alpha side, as Gwen has been played by Kongye a couple of times. So it does seem like he is the focus of this ban phase.
And I think Hong Kong Attitude are thinking about whether they want to let that LeBlanc go through. Both of these mid laners are also very adept on Rise, so it's potentially possible. And they banned the Lulu instead, so they're much more worried about the Olaf strategy that Alpha Esports has played before. Enchantress with Olaf has been pretty popular, we have seen around, and Alpha Esports going to leave LeBlanc on the wayside, lock in the Olaf, much like Dodoy in the previous draft. Now, to be absolutely honest, I'm not a huge fan of Olaf in this match. I feel like there are better options, and Olaf doesn't give you a lot of outs later into the game. Also, Olaf is primarily a bot side ganker, and bot lane just isn't as important. If you get a gank on bot lane, a lot of teams can just shrug it off and play on. So, I'm not sure about this priority, and it also feels a little bit awkward to play LeBlanc and Olaf in the same rotation. We'll see what they draft off here, but like in conventional wisdom, it should be something like a Karma coming in for Xiaotu. But I also feel like Karma is a bit of a waste of Xiaotu's carried potential, given how much he has to do on the side lanes, and Karma just isn't a champion you can do anything on side lanes. So kind of an interesting draft, and they are just going to lock in the LeBlanc regardless.
Yeah, sometimes it just, you see the power pick presenting itself, and they just decide to go for it. They do set up for at least some pick potential there. The Nautilus with the hook certainly can get some of that done. But interesting that the priority has been on the Olaf when this was the game plan going forward. Volibear will be the answer. That should be a Kongye pick, but I suppose it could go into the hands of Rock as well. As we enter the second ban phase, Hong Kong Attitude will be looking to try and, I think, target out On at this point.
Yeah, for sure. They're definitely going to think about getting away the Kalista and probably the Ezreal as well, given this draft. It does look like Alpha Esports is just going to play a weak side bot lane. They could also go for the Kaisa in this draft as well, because it's very skirmish and pick oriented. They want to funnel in onto the same target. On the other hand, the Olaf does present a lot of threat versus the Rise early on, so it's possible that Alpha could leave open the Rise and think about countering that. It's going to be pretty interesting to see if they indeed leave it open. Rise is technically a counter pick to the LeBlanc, but you could also argue that with the Olaf there, you could kind of use the Olaf to counter out the Rise in return. So they will leave Rise open and ban out Galio instead. That's definitely a setup for the Rise. They're looking at a potential for just chain the Rise and kill him with the Undertow afterwards. So, Hongso has to play very safe here, but I think he can play pretty safe because, honestly, if you look at this draft, it's actually more focused around front to back.
That's a misfortune lock in for On. Okay. I was going over my mind what else is in the champion pool. I thought he could pull the Jinx out again, but he just goes straight for the MF.
Pirates of the
We're going to get a pair of pirates here, I think.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Alpha Esports. That's a lot of damage.
A pretty interesting composition, because you have a lot of AoE that you can get off at a very long distance where you don't actually have to be in range of Aphelios' auto attack range. So this is really smart. It's hard for Aphelios to walk up against Make It Rain, and also very hard to walk up against barrels. So Alpha Esports came prepared here. I'll be honest, I'm pretty impressed by this draft coming in from Lava. It can control terrain extremely well. And Hong Kong Attitude, they also have a pretty interesting draft coming into this one. Their answer is we're going to actually try and play the 1-3-1 into the late game. So our Aphelios is going to be in the mid lane with a 3-man where he doesn't even need to walk up. It's mainly going to be the side lanes dealing the damage here. And that's certainly a very viable strategy. I think the biggest mismatch we have overall in this matchup is going to be Rock versus 3Z. So if he can get far enough ahead in the top lane, they can just ride on 3Z's leads to end the game.
Yeah, that is the if for sure. I really like what Alpha brought out at the end there. Some interesting choices, a lot of damage coming out of this team, and just really setting themselves up for success in at least a couple of those lanes. So that is some adaptation we're seeing out of this squad. We'll see if they can string the two wins together. Remember, they are coming off their first victory of the split against Liab Hong Kong Attitude on their side, still a strong squad, still going to be tough to contend with, but they have a pack of power picks for themselves as well. And I think as long as Hongsuo can stay safe, that rise should come up clutch. You mentioned later game. It's not something that Hong Kong Attitude like to play for, but let's see if they can mix it up a bit.
And I still think they have a lot of gank opportunities in both of these side lanes. Gameplank early on, has a little bit of trouble surviving. And whenever you're playing in Misfortune, you run into a volley bear. That's typically a bad time for you. So I could still see Hong Kong Attitude playing pretty safe in the mid lane, keeping Hongsuo alive so he can just scale up for the later phases, and putting their attention onto something like the bot lane. If you think about a Kongyue dive behind the tower, which is a very common, then you can have a TP ward come down and then Camille show up, and you get guaranteed stuns across the board on Thresh, on a Camille and Volibear at the same time. It's very easy to execute. So there's a lot of different ways that both of these compositions can interact with, but I gotta hand it to Alpha. This is definitely a super interesting draft. They are gonna have an advantage over Aphelios in team fights, because Aphelios most of the time is not going to be able to walk up to his targets.
Well, we've had some great games today. We've had some fun games today. And I think we've had some great fun today. I'm excited to see what comes out here in our final game of the night, Clement. Alpha Esports pulling out some interesting picks. We got Vikings, we got Pirates, we got Bears. We got just about everything.
And we do have on press the attack Misfortune as well. So a little bit more auto attack focused this time around. We have seen Arcane Comet be the go-to for quite a while. In the previous time that Misfortune was in meta, was mainly a sort of poke focus build, a lethality poke focus build, despite Arcane Comet. But this time around, it is more of a Q focus build coming out from On. You can proc PTA again with just the auto attack reset on that one. So we'll see how he does. If he gets the slowdown, it's very easy to get a gank in. So I do expect both junglers to really try and path towards the bottom side. And indeed, both Kongyue and K-Babe are starting out top. And we'll see what the level 3 gank looks like when it does arrive.
Yes, we will. Taking a look across the board. Just trying to check. I'm actually checking in on when Misfortune has been played this season. And it's not particularly found a whole lot of success, I would say. But maybe On knows something we don't.
Yeah, when you have players that have played in multiple metas, they do have these weird things that they can just pull out of their pocket at a moment's notice. We are seeing Rock 3Z get the better of Rock in the early trades, as is expected here. And he is going to be isolated in this lane, so Rock having to dip into the brushes just to keep his HP up a little bit higher. It's typically pretty hard to play early on in this matchup. And
yeah, Gangplank's a little bit brutal there, and as long as he's able to dodge away from those sweeps, I think he's doing just fine. We did want to talk about this mid matchup too, but that isn't going to be quite as relevant until the gank starts to come through. Hongsuo playing safely back to tower. Xiaotu also not going for the, I'm going to murder your face summoners either. Has the teleport instead of the ignite.
Yep. And just taking a look at the clear here. K-Babe did a very, very low HP clear early on his camps. Completely intentional, just to keep his clear speed up and get maximum use of his passive. And at times he was actually 2 camps ahead of the Volibear, so a pretty interesting clear speed stuff coming in here. But we still we'll have Kongyue coming into lane just a little bit earlier. Both sides looking for the 3v3, and here we go.
Yeah, gonna be making it rain, forcing the flash out of K. Nicely done by the bottom side. On just bullying the Hong Kong Attitude bottom side, but he steps a little far forward here as Kongyue wasn't done yet. He walks through the lane, the flash forward. We want an early first blood, and we are not gonna get it as the teleport's complete, and it is a full-on party in this bottom lane.
They're trying to find a cheeky kill with the spell flux, but not gonna work out for them. And oh,
Xiaotu gets hooked. The Flay, they go in. First blood goes to Hongsuo, and he's looking for more as On is running for his life into the bushes, stopped up, stunned by Sheng, needs another auto. K-Babe will find it, and then double Flay back. Eminem's getting some, and then some. My word, Hong Kong Attitude on the board.
The 4-for-1 trade pretty much dooms Alpha Esports' entire early game, and it was a little bit unnecessary from Xiaotu as he walks back into Hong Kong Attitude, and K just outplays them all with that. Let's watch that again. It was initially very good for the side of Alpha Esports as they do tick over to level 3 first. Also, K-Babe is level 4, so they have 3 extra skill points in this trade. But On continues to chase. Hong Kong Attitude are able to equal out the level leads. You know, this was kind of a wash on both sides, getting the TPs out. And we are going to see the big mistake here by Xiaotu. He goes in, but he doesn't really have the damage to finish off any target whatsoever. I'm a little bit surprised he still went for this one, and he pays dearly with it. Just a quick turnaround, getting Hongsuo the extra kill, and also the phase rush to boot. So, put On in a very awkward situation. And then we just have the mechanical outplays. Right gun at the right time, grabbing him into double Flay, into beautiful cleanup. And Hong Kong Attitude are having a great start here. You know, they should have been on the back foot given this mid-jungle and bot lane setup. But now that's, I think we're going to have a very different script from this point onward.
Yeah, I think so. Hongsuo playing with a little bit more swagger now on this rise in this matchup. They've been having a good time. Both junglers actually getting involved in that last fight, but certainly Kongye getting the much better end of the deal with 2 kills and 2 assists. Now been a part of everything in that bottom side action. And Xiaotu just getting bullied a little bit by this rise. We're not even fight level 6 yet. Mimic gets popped, and he actually doesn't get baited. Hongsuo, maybe he does now as K-Babe comes in. Hongsuo is going to try and turn onto K-Babe, and that's going to be 1 kill. Oh boy.
Xiaotu is going in for more. Oh, he's going to back off.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to take that one. Not against the big bear.
Yeah, not against a level 6 bear. Hopefully Xiaotu doesn't stay around too long. But a lot expended on Alpha's side. They also have to use the cannon barrage coming in from the top lane just to make that trade. And this is a scary bear at this point. Kongye already heading to the bot. K-Babe is going to shadow this, so he should be fine at this point. He's going to get spotted, so Alpha Esports are okay, but Hongsuo is also coming in, so this is going to be a 3v4.
Yeah, I think they're going to try to take this dive regardless. And the party portal is going to connect, and looks like Sheng will be the one they managed to catch. Hook back and just out of tower range, but look at Kongye going down to On. However, it looks like Alpha are running out of steam here. They are going to tag Xiaotu in, but he decides he's not going to be able to take anything from this. So, 1-for-2 trade. Hong Kong Attitude coming up with that and the plate.
Eminem falling a little bit low, though. If he's not careful, Xiaotu could find an opening. They can't really greed for the plates anymore. And this is one of the plays I was talking about, just how easy it is for Hong Kong Attitude to find those kills into the bottom side. Relmore comes in very far behind tower. They know that Nautilus doesn't have the flash open up on him immediately, and K-Babe unfortunately doesn't have a chance to get away. No Ragnarok there, no extra movement speed or anti-crowd control, so they're going to fall down. And look at how fed Eminem is at this point. 3-0 and 3 start coming out of this.
Very accelerated. Aphelios is going to get off to quite a big lead there. I do like that On is able to dish a lot of damage back. I mean, he's really using this misfortune to the fullest in these counter engages, but just not finding enough kills. And Hong Kong Attitude seem to be a couple of steps ahead in every one of these engagements, and as a result, they just keep on rolling in the gold.
And this is why I, kind of question the duo of Olaf plus LeBlanc. This is a problem with this combination, is that they just don't put damage on targets in an instant, so you allow the enemy to trade back a lot of damage in most of your trades. When you look at LeBlanc, she's typically paired up with something that can deal damage incredibly fast. Rek'Sai and Lee Sin are your kind of go-tos in that situation, and Olaf is not one of them. Olaf needs to walk up to the target, which gives a lot of response time over to your opponents. Now, Hong Kong Attitude, when they have a Fed member like this, I definitely agree with Alpha Esports' strategy is you just try to take the bounty off of Aphelios, make sure he can't snowball as heavily, and they are willing to trade some just pressure onto the bot side, plus Drake, for the Herald onto the top lane. And with this trade, it pretty much means that they know their bot lane tower is gone. Like, there's not much you can do about it when an enemy Aphelios is this fed and you give them a Herald. So, I feel like at this point, it's almost time for K-Babe to kind of give up on the bottom side. You know, you pressure it, you show up, you make sure it doesn't collapse, but you're going to have to find your kill somewhere else.
We'll see if he does it. Yeah, Hong Kong Attitude are having a great time on that bottom. But the Dragon picked up by Alpha, certainly not nothing. K-Babe, you know, I think much like Dodoi really picking this Olaf early enough, it does start to seem like maybe it's a bit of a crutch champion. And it could be a problem for Alpha going forward in the split. But as we get closer and closer to that 10-minute mark, game plan-wise, Alpha, they were the ones that wanted to get the early game. They didn't manage to find it. So where do they go from here? Do they just try to get 3Z rolling so far ahead that, you know, they can just split push their way to victory?
I don't really think it's possible in the late game. Sure, Gameplan can do that when ahead versus Camille, but you need to be very, very far ahead to do it. Typically, the Camille is going to get the upper hand in most situations. Take a look at On's build right here. He is pouting quite heavily. Probably does not enjoy the lane. I have a lot of sympathy
yeah,
with him
going
at this
up against
point.
the Fed Aphelios is never fun.
Yeah, 303 Aphelios. Can we call that 600 years? I mean...
Yeah, I think so. That's how the math works, right?
Yeah, it's closing on a millennium at this point, so a lot of design experience going into that one. And we can see the potential 4v2 coming in again. They're setting up for it once more. But at least this time they will have the cannon barrage to kind of dissuade the enemy from coming in onto them. Let's see how long they can hold on to this bot side.
Okay, Bongye sniffing around through jungle. And with K-Babe here, a dive might be a little harder, but I don't know if a dive is what they want. They're going to go ahead and pop the Rift Herald. And this will be the push-in. Grab all the plates. Here comes the rise. Actually, with Hongsuo here, they have a chance to try and make that play go through. And they will get the bear dive in. Let's see if it's enough damage. The teleport starts to go through. K opens up with that first kill as he secures it with the Ignite. Meanwhile, though, the counter engage is quite big, but it's just not enough as K-Babe will go down. Xiaotu trying to run for his life here. And I think Hongsuo will be able to find the finishing blow, and they do. It's Kongye that gets the kill credit. Big plays down bottom for Hong Kong Attitude.
Another 4 kills going in the way of HKA, and that was despite some pretty good play from Alpha. Honestly, they should have full retreated and just given up the tower. They wanted to make a risky stand here and see if it would pay out. And to their credit, you know, Sheng actually got a pretty nice 3-man depth charge on the back end, but unfortunately, On did not get the ultimate off. Bullet time still intact. Got tagged by K way too early, and that was a big reason that they weren't able to claw back more in this fight. They had the cannon barrage layered with the depth charge, but it just wasn't enough without any damage coming from Misfortune whatsoever. And, you know, they wanted to make a risky stand. It didn't pay off. They fall even further behind. And now Hong Kong Attitude are in that phase where they're just playing around Eminem right now. He's 5-0-5. He has a lot of sustain to heal through sieges on the minion wave. And they just play through him and strip the entire map of towers. That's just the game plan.
Mm-hmm. And while we were in, well, I'll talk about it in a moment because it looks like they've caught, well, caught is a strong word when you're talking about a Ragnarocking Olaf. And there is the bullet time. Not enough to finish off Kongye, but it was close. Eminem, meanwhile, turns onto On. The damage is just ridiculous. And with everybody from Hong Kong Attitude heading towards the top side, Alpha, they tried to get a pick onto Rock. It did not pay off. Before that whole replay finished up, we did have 3Z getting collapsed on by Hongsuo and Rock, so that is why he wasn't there. And I wanted to talk about 3Z's ultimate in that last fight, too. He threw it out way too close to the tower. I do think Alpha didn't quite realize where that fight was going with their own stand. And unfortunately, yeah, the coordination just wasn't quite there, despite Shung's best efforts with the depth charge.
Yeah, it was very unfortunate there. They weren't able to keep the targets underneath the tower long enough. I agree with you. I think they probably could have had a little bit more forward in that position. And what's done is done. Right now we see Eminem walking through the bullet time like it's absolutely nothing, and getting the shield from his immortal shield bow. So at this point, if Alpha Esports want to stem the bleeding, they have to kill Eminem, and it has to be a massive group effort here. I think there is a decent chance that they still get the pick just because Eminem is running on 0 sums at this point. So I think the best play from Alpha is probably to continue to just roll the roulette and go all in on this target, get the bounty gold back, and plan on from that point on.
Yeah, that's probably the best bet they have. They have been able to secure a couple of dragons at least, with the fact that the timing on backs has been in their favor down on that side, but it just seems like a consolation prize. K-Babe just hasn't been as effective on this Olaf. Tried to get some plays in early, just didn't quite work out. And yeah, you're facing down a 5-0-5 Aphelios at this point. That is your millennium of game design, fully completed.
Oh, and I do have to mention that today I've been kind of disheartened by all the Olaf picks. I really didn't think Olaf is that strong in the meta. You have things like Volibear and Trundle that can fight the Olaf on pretty even ground.
In this game too. Maybe not this game. Sorry, last game.
Yeah, Zinzao was definitely open last game too. So it's just kind of baffling to me to see this much priority on Olaf. Well, to be honest, we only have 2 players that have this priority on Olaf, and they've been pretty consistent through the season. So.
Oh boy! Oh, on good night, Sweet Prince. That was a heck of a collapse from Hong Kong Attitude, really opening up despite the bullet time, trying to clear those waves. And Hong Kong Attitude just keep finding these dives into turrets, and that's the 3rd one to crack it open. 3Z will at least get something back for Alpha here on bottom, but they just keep falling further and further behind.
Really good 6th sense coming in from Brock as well. He feels like there's some sort of ambush there and just backs off out of the tower. Doesn't give his own life for that. So right now, Hong Kong Attitude are at 7,000 gold advantage. There really aren't that many outer towers for them to push anymore, which means it's going to be difficult for Alpha to find that spring on them, to find that flank in their own territory. If Alpha want to get it, it almost has to come from the Herald fight that's coming up next here. And we'll take a look at what sort of vision they can get. Only 1 ward in the river at this point. Shung does find the target though.
Speaking of hooks, K actually pulls him back, flays him. Eminem taken very low, but can't quite die. Hong Kong Attitude keeping their AD carry immortal for now.
That's got to be so disheartening. You got the perfect start to the fight, and he still walks out with the Thresh. Alpha Esports are still going to try, though.
Well, Kongye taking a little bit low, but not nearly as low as K-Babe, forced to flash the wall. The heal is on. In goes the bear. The storm has been brought, and K-Babe has been sent back to Fountain. Xiaotu on, all taken down, and it's just pick after pick after pick. How big is this squad right now?
They're immense, and Kongye is leading the charge. 3Z's been farming the entire game, but he just doesn't have the teammates here present to keep himself alive. Even if he backs out, there's still a Realm Orb coming in, too.
Nowhere for him to go. Ain't enough oranges to make that K, unfortunately. And they will get the delayed ace.
Ooh, I wonder how many kills Eminem is going to finish this game with, because he's completely unstoppable at this point. He has a lot of unspent gold, and if he really wants to make sure that he's never going to fall, he can still go back and get his perfect stopwatch here. A bit of a weird play from Alpha. I felt like they were betting on the fact that maybe Kongye, maybe Eminem would not be full healed, but he does have the Severum, he does have the Immortal Shield Bow, and is able to get back all of that on the Raptors. Hong Kong Attitude were honestly in perfect fighting condition. Alpha Esports lose on the gamble, and they pay with all their lives.
Yep. Siren coming, they can't run fast enough. It's the sound of the volleys.
It was a pretty low percentage play. I'm not sure I liked the gamble that they took there. It seemed really impossible for them, and as we saw, Eminem walking back into the fight after being targeted out, after burning his flash, was still full HP. That's just how much he heals, and doesn't really matter.
He's going for the 1v1 teleport. Here comes Xiao 2, and Hongso goes golden, and he's out. Even when they thought they got the pick, it's not happening. Eminem from downtown nearly picks off Xiaotu.
Sky Splitter. Okay, he's fine.
Not enough. They can't even take Baron yet because it's not on the Rift, but I feel like they could do it at this point.
Yeah, they definitely could. It's kind of disheartening at this point because the only member that I feel like has a chance against Eminem is probably Xiaotu, and he only lasts 3 auto attacks at this point. So, yeah, his window to get the kill and to get the raid boss down is so incredibly slim. This is one of those games I feel like just because of the early tower dives that happened, the 4v1 trade that we saw happen twice in bottom lane, it just got way too out of control way too quickly.
Yeah, unfortunately. And Alpha just... I respect the fact that they really wanted to go and get the action done early. They needed to play for early game. Hong Kong Attitude drafted a little bit more to scale up, but they were the ones who won the early fights despite that. And yeah, they kind of just rolled out of control here, and the Aphelios just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and now pretty much everybody else on the team is catching up too.
I really felt like if Alpha Esports was willing to play a little bit slower and focus their energies on the mid lane where, they left the Rise open just to have this Olaf chop him down, why not try to develop that play a couple more times? We saw it actually work out quite well because you can actually switch target with the LeBlanc easily. LeBlanc opens up, you bait them in, Olaf finishes off the kill, LeBlanc can get out with distortion back. It's very easy to snowball that with just trading kills back and forth and making sure LeBlanc never actually dies. But unfortunately, after the bottom lane plays, Volibear was just so fed to the point that that 2v2 didn't even work out.
Yeah, we got another stop. The Zonya's coming in for the volley. That's the second time tonight.
Yeah, I actually like the build quite a bit because Volibear scales incredibly well with a little bit of AP. You don't need too much of it, but he does have that, I believe it's like a 1.0 scaling on Stormbringer, so it definitely helps you get to that kill threshold on backlines. Right. And we have seen this be pretty popular.
All right. So the Vision game controlled here. Baron Pit. Oh, they've got K-Babe. And he just cannot get away fast enough. Doesn't matter if he's Ragnarokin. HKA is Ragnarolling all over the Alpha Esports squad. Shung's down. That's a double kill going the way of Rock. Rest of Alpha scattered to the winds. This should be Baron. I mean, Hong Suo wasn't even in that fight. He's bot side.
Straight up 4v5 win. And I was counting the auto attacks there. The two tankiest members don't even last 5 auto attacks.
Okay, bullet time comes through. That is going to shred a little bit of damage here, but Kolnier is still doing okay. And that Zonya's is going to get popped just a bait and switch.
Oh, the flash!
And that might be the rest of Alpha Esports going down. 3Z flashes the wall, but so does Rock. And the triple kill for MNM. And they're going to pop Shelly on the inhib turret.
That's definitely double digits already for Eminem. I believe he's up to 11 kills so far. See how much he can get. I get a feeling that Alpha is going to try again, and Eminem's going to get even further ahead. Throughout these entire team fights,
and 9 assists.
20 takedowns. Plus he has a stopwatch. He's doing his due diligence to stay alive. If you watch this replay, just look at how many auto attacks it takes to take down K-Babe. 3 auto attacks, ultimate goes down. He's already less than 100 HP. Same thing goes for Shung. He's forced into a corridor, nowhere for him to go. And that's another 3 autos before he's wiped off the face of the earth.
Yep, that should be the Baron going down too. And it is kind of like clockwork here for Hong Kong Attitude. We're going to watch the rest of the replay through. Xiaotu just... Man, K has been on point with these hooks. They haven't really needed to be this game because they've just been so far ahead anyways. But I love this. Kongye goes in, gets the Stormbringer, instantly pops his Zanyas, and it buys just enough time for the rest of the team to tag in and melt the health bars of Alpha.
Yeah, he gets so much HP on the W proc as well, so able to keep himself alive through all of that. It's extremely unfortunate that Alpha Esports don't have the attack damage anymore. I just feel like it's kind of sad. Alpha in week 2 was pretty much everyone banning Xiaotu's LeBlanc, saying that, hey, if we take away his LeBlanc, he doesn't have a strategy to run. And now with the rise of the Rise pick, no pun intended, people are willing to just let his let his LeBlanc through. It's like, well, we can give him his best strategy. It's K.
Okay, Kongye getting caught out in the jungle. Might end up going down here. He does fall to On's bullet time. But Eminem is so fed, he's just frontline AD carrying right now. And look at the damage dish through as Rock tags his way forward. They're just going to go for the dive or go for the push down bottom. Party Portal will bring a couple in for the dive. Hongsuo, maybe they bit off a little more than they could chew. Never mind, it's fine. Hongsuo just chases down 1, 2, 3. Oh, dear.
Oh, well, the enemy AD carry is taking a Realm Warp into your own inhibitor tower and tanking your inhibitor tower.
12
There's probably
kills.
Something gone wrong with the game.
Zero deaths. I believe the technical term for this is a Stomperuski. Goodbye, On.
Well, Alpha Esports, they are going to reset that win streak at the end of this one. A little bit too much going wrong too early for them, and Hong Kong Attitude get a very easy finish. Best game of Eminem's career. Not best game of Eminem's day, I should say. He still has plenty of great games ahead of him, I know.
There we go. But certainly stand-up performance for Eminem and Hong Kong Attitude bouncing back after that J-Team loss. And just, honestly, closing it out in style. Really, so many good plays from this team. Errors from Alpha enabling them, but they took it all the way.
And I do think this is the best game that we have seen from K. In his previous showings, he did have a lot of games where I felt like mechanically he still felt a little bit rusty. We were all kind of surprised that K just showed up out of nowhere back on the Hong Kong Attitude in the team house on the roster. He's 25 years old. He's had a history all the way back to Season 3, so we thought he was kind of in retired mode. He comes back. Doesn't really perform that well in week 2, but this game, on his patented Thresh, he's able to show us all the experience that he has accumulated over the years. I felt like he was the main factor that got Hong Kong Attitude going, especially in the bot lane skirmish. We found the Death Sense onto Xiao2 and then the double flay to get everyone going.
You know, there's certain champions and certain skill abilities that you know, it doesn't matter how many changes the game goes through, it seems to kind of be the same. And being able to land those Thresh hooks is just such a timeless ability, and we know, you know, there's a number of players that have just made a career off of it across the world. And K definitely has showcased those skills. He's back to flexing. He took a little time in week 2 to really like scale back up into form, but now we're seeing him come back. And I think this particular game at least, it does show why this team chose to put their faith in K after we had seen some shining performances out of Slaytrue as well. So, you know, certainly have a couple of solid supports in their roster. But Hong Kong Attitude getting the bounce back win after a loss to J-Team. Good for them as we close out the day here. Alpha, as you mentioned, they get the reset. They made a few mistakes. Those few mistakes turned into a few more mistakes. And then you were looking at a 12-kill Aphelios.
Yeah, Alpha, to me, they're still a little bit too eager to get early leads, and they push themselves to take unreasonable risks at times. I felt like that definitely was the case for Xiao2. Not in kill range was Hong Kong Attitude's bot lane, but he still went in for the extra play, and that really doomed the rest of the team to kind of collapse with him, you know. So very unfortunate there. Again, this is a game where I'm not too sure I would look too deeply in what should have happened because it ended so early on. And to no one's surprise, Eminem is going to pick up the MVP with that 12-0-12 finish. You know, that's almost like a 2K if you count this by takedowns. Great performance on his end.
That was a lot. Eminem did a lot. I'm just going to say that. You know, at the beginning, maybe he was fed a couple of them over, but really delivered well. I think K set him up for some kills, but just overall Hong Kong Attitude, they just showed that they're so much better at map control and taking these team fights than, you know, compared to a team like Alpha. But it does show in the difference in standings where these two teams are at the moment. Alpha really trying to prove that they can break into even the top 8. And I think there's a long ride ahead for that team. For Hong Kong Attitude, it's a good turnaround. I like what they did in this draft. It definitely seemed to work out well for them, and seemed a lot more comfortable than I was expecting even.
Yeah, I like the pivots quite a bit there because we did see the draft from Alpha Esports specifically targeted out mid jungle, especially the Rise pick. That's where they were trying to go after. And instead, Hong Kong Attitude made it all about the bot lane. That's a really smart way to play the game, where if your enemy only has one win condition and you avoid their one win condition, you try to just basically play around them, then you can find other avenues to take away the game. They had the 1-3-1 in the back if they ever needed to go to that as well. So just great drafting. I really love what Chowie has been doing with this team so far. And now taking a look at today's standing, we got the first big upset of the split in Boom.
We almost had two.
I can't believe it. Honestly, we thought that Boom Esports was going to default to gravity and go back to the means, but they actually outperformed. They show that they're not just a fluke that picks on teams at the bottom of the table, but they can take it to the top of the ladder as well.
Yeah, it was incredible. Boom Esports pick up a 1-1 on the day, so close to taking PSG Talent out. But you see in the standings at the end of the first round robin for them, PSG stand atop and stand alone from the rest of the squads there. We'll take a look back at the results and we'll tag back the standings. Just a little bit of a debate there. Machi holding second place, though, with Megabank Beyond Gaming losing out on the game today. So we do see a shift in standings, and I think Boom have really solidified their place as a top 4 team here. The fact that they can knock off Beyond Gaming, I'm really excited to see when they face off against Machi again. I'm excited for the next PSG game. I'm going to check the schedule, see where they're playing again. That's going to be so hype. Boom have just impressed me so much today, and they just played on another level.
Yeah, they certainly did. I didn't expect them to have that in them. J-Team is going to be the other one, like out of the top 4, where they actually lost the hardest to. So the rematch for that one is going to be very interesting. And with tomorrow's game, we're going to be ending the first round robin with the first 3 games going down into the book here with a lot of fun games, especially the Machi versus Megabank Beyond Gaming coming up as the 4th match of the day. That's really going to decide who can hang on to that second place position under PSG Talon. So that's going to be my pick of the day coming up tomorrow on Saturday.
Yeah, I think that is mine as well. Looking at a couple of other games that I'm excited for. Obviously, Impunity. I don't want to get too ahead of the 8 ball, but they did manage to pick up a win today to snap that losing streak. Maybe they can find something against J-Team in our opening game tomorrow. It's not going to be easy, but it's always a possibility. And wow, we've got some exciting ones ahead of us. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on the Machi and Megabank Beyond Gaming as we get towards the top of the standings. So many great games in this league. It's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of sad that J-Team, I think, only went to Worlds once, or else Top King would have a lot more emotes to flash. We could get the train going.
Maybe we'll see how the rest of the season pans out. I mean, we could be seeing even more. But for now, that is going to be it from us. Thank you so much for joining us today for the games. Tune back in tomorrow, same place, same time, as the PCS summer continues.